Welcome Doomloopers to another episode of Doomloop Dispatch, the show all about the worst parts of the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm excited to announce the new format. I got my buddy here, Scot Miller. He's going to be our co-host for now on. I'm so excited and honored he's joining the team, and we're going to be talking so much about what's going on in the Bay Area and everything that concerns us. And what are you hoping to talk about and address in this show?
Well, I mean, I think look, I really the reason why I was really excited about becoming a part of this project is because of one, the title, Doomloop Dispatch, because I do believe that we are caught into this ridiculous doom loop that's taking place in the Bay Area, particularly Oakland and San Francisco. And I think it's something that needs to be like closely monitored because it's constantly shifting. It's constantly shifting. 1 minute we're talking about tech campuses, next minute we're talking about crime, then all of a sudden things shift over and we're talking about like cars or traffic and so like in the only way that we can really like I guess you could say combat it, because that's exactly what it is. It is like a kind of like hijacking of a narrative of our towns. I think that one of the only ways we can do it is by creating a counter narrative and also pointing out, like, you know, that we have people in our community who actually are doing good work, who are doing things to fight back, but also doing things to remedy a lot of these things that people consider serious problems. Nobody really talks about, for example, how there's whole communities of people who are trying to find remedy for the homeless situation in Oakland and in San Francisco. Nobody wants to talk about all of the care that these people are putting into that. It seems to be this thing where we're always talking about, well, I guess you could actually say the money, right? When in fact it actually is about the people, and so that's what I'd like to focus on. I like to focus on how the people are fighting back, how the people are organizing, and how the people are caring for each other during this like difficult time during the doom loop. So
Yes.
yeah.
And there's totally a narrative. You're right. There is a group of people that is not being heard. There's the side with all the money that seems to dominate the narrative, especially in social media, especially in local news media. They're the ones getting all the attention because not only do they have the money, but they're also the ones seen as the experts, seen as the saviors, because our narrative is pushing that.
Right.
But honestly, who's being ignored? The people truly doing the hard work, who know what's going on and know what the real issues are and are trying to address those.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that really is where the answer lies. The answer lies in the people who have the boots on the ground and people who actually have skin in the game. And so, I mean, that is the thing I'm really most interested in, not just in Doomloop Dispatch, but I think it's a really good connection to these other platforms, other conversations I'm beginning with other people, because I think it's like what they used to call legacy media, especially our local news, television wise. And actually, I mean, I don't even know if AM stations still really exist, but yeah, but I mean, I think that it's really important to start really focusing on creating community, but also like bringing people in who are already doing the work and have actually something to lose. I like if you're a billionaire, you really have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, like you can sit at that table and bet all day. Right, you can sit at that table and lose and lose and lose and lose and lose and lose, right? But nobody's ever going to say you're losing. I mean, like the thing is, Elon Musk has a stack of chips and he's constantly losing those chips. I mean, constantly, but he's got a stack of them, so we still call him a winner. But he's actually losing like a lot, you know. And we're doing the same thing with the overall countrywide. You know, we nobody really talks about how the Republicans haven't won a significant election since 2016. They're not really a viable competitor anymore, right? But we still have to treat them like they're viable competitors because they got this stack of chips and they just keep losing and losing and losing. So, but you're still losing though. You're still losing. And so, I mean, I want to talk to the people who are the winners. I want to talk to people who have the winning ideas and help at least connect and rebuild on that. So, I mean, I want to say thank you for inviting me on this journey.
Oh, it's totally my honor. And honestly, you bring up legacy media, and the story just came out about my old employer, KQED, is having a cutback, and how even NPR used to be like the unbiased, objective standard, you
Right.
know,
Right.
like especially in when compared to cable news and everything else. And
Yeah.
it used to be so popular, especially the Bay Area, but it's losing its share even in the Bay Area. These
Yeah.
traditional news sources, and I think a lot of that is trust.
Mm.
I think a lot of the stories that people would be more interested in are being ignored because there's other narratives that need to be pushed.
Right. Right. I mean, but I also think that another part of that is, I mean, like Christopher Rufo went on a campaign against NPR. Elon Musk went on a campaign against Media Matters, and Media Matters had to do a major layoff just today.
Yes.
Right. And so that was really, and the reason being is because Musk sued them, and like he knew that there was no way he could win, but he knew that he could actually like hurt them financially just by constantly throwing more and more lawsuits towards them, making them go, deeper and deeper into their own pockets in order to defend themselves until they couldn't do it anymore. Now I know the KQED is a somewhat different, but I mean, like Elise Stefanik, perfect example, right? You know Elise Stefanik, right?
The Congress lady?
Yeah, Congresswoman, right? So she's been used twice. She also called NPR in for congressional hearings. She did the same thing with Claudia Gay. So what Rufo does is Rufo talks to her, gets the permission to go, okay, well, I will do that for you. Then he goes online and says, this is my prediction. This is going to happen. But it's not really your prediction because you've already planned it beforehand. It's not like Congress heard you make your prediction. You talked to Congress and then came and said, this is a prediction. So, I mean, I think that what we always have to keep in mind when we start thinking about these things is that a whole lot of these outlets have already been assaulted. Like, a whole lot of the local news that we're watching right now has already been infiltrated by far right extremists, right? Like, and things like Media Matters and KQED, they are also under assault from those same forces. So, I mean, I think in a lot of ways, what they're trying to do is they're trying to get ahead of a narrative, and that narrative is actually reality. But, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're trying to get ahead of it, because I mean, the thing is just like there are a whole lot of things that have become very clear. Billionaires shouldn't exist.
Yes.
Right. Like, white supremacy is terrorism. Like, you know what I mean? And Donald Trump's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Like these things are all very much real. So they have to try to figure out a way to control the narrative. And that's what they're doing now. I think that a lot of people don't really get their news the way they used to either. I mean, the only person I know who sits around with the TV on all day watching the news is my dad. Mm-hmm. He watches MSNBC, CNN. He's got the newspaper. He's reading books on history. But he's the only person I know who actually like watches news on television anymore. I can't think of anybody else who does it. My mom comes in and sits and watches for a while, and then she goes back to playing her video poker or whatever. So I mean, I think that also is the thing. Is it is about creating media that people want to engage with again.
Yes.
Yeah, and so I think the podcast. I'm thinking about places like Substack.
Yeah,
like that, which actually are things that people can engage with. They are the applications themselves, and let's be honest about it. The far right is way ahead of us on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then it's also been a tradition in journalism as well, especially with Substack and those kind of newsletters. I.F. Stone, I mean, he was doing that in the 40s, and he had people like Albert Einstein subscribing to him. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's so true about the audience for news as well, because it's different. I mean, not only it always so bummed me out, but my parents used to watch Fox News 6 to 8 hours a day, and I'm not kidding. Wow. Like they had a big house with 5 rooms, or like 5 TVs in a room, and everyone you turn it on to be Fox News. And like my mother could just repeat that stuff, just any talking point. It would just gush out of her. But thankfully that's kind of dying out. I think especially a younger generation, I'm basically Generation X, and I know for a fact that the generations under me seem to see through that BS, and they're not getting wrapped up in it. And they're also looking for alternative medias. You see Jacobin coming up, but sadly, even The Intercept, that's getting sued. The leftist media is being under attack through lawsuits, just like you were saying with Elon Musk and Media Matters, because it's all been the Peter Thiel strategy. For those who don't know, Peter Thiel was outed as being gay by the Gawker.
Yeah.
Now Gawker was like, "Hey, this guy supports a lot of right wing causes and stuff, so it's fair game. If he's going to be gay, if he's going to be in the closet and yet supporting things that are anti-queer, sorry, it's all good." But Peter Thiel, being a very religious person, did not like that. Did not, and you could talk to about like the kind of ethics around outing people. But what did he do? Well, he didn't sue them directly himself because he knew he wouldn't win. But what he did find was a case that would work for him, and that was Hulk Hogan. He slept with a prostitute in Florida and was filmed, and Gawker released that video.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was enough to be sued, and Gawker sued into oblivion.
Yeah.
And actually take it over. And then like the remnants were basically, I believe they were taken over by a right wing person, at least centrist, know.
Right. Well, I used to write for Gawker, and I was there when it collapsed, actually.
Oh my gosh, what was that like? What was it like on that side?
Well, I mean, what happened was that my editor, I'm trying to remember his name. Oh gosh, I wish I could remember his name. He's over at Wired right now. Jason Parham. His name was Jason Parham. And so he used to solicit me for pretty much like things about literature in particular, because I was like, writer working in a bookstore and all that kind of thing. But then things started trickling down. And then like we started getting these signals that like, something heavy was about to happen. And then boom, you just woke up one morning and the shit was just gone. I mean, like I couldn't get a hold of and this is what they do. They can you. And then the minute they can you, like your email is just obliterated. Like there was nobody I could get in contact with. I couldn't get a hold of anybody. It was like Gawker was still coming out a little bit, like because you said it was. I forget exactly who acquired it after that, but all of my contacts just pretty much disappeared overnight. Like everybody that I communicated with at Gawker, their email was just bounced back.
Yep.
So I mean, like but at the same time though, it was a reliance on like benefactors, I mean, like as a former managing editor of the East Bay Express during the pandemic, and watching all of our grassroots advertising just dry up because we're talking about bookstores, restaurants, and retail spaces that have to shut down. And so we ended up like, and I think this happened to a lot of people. You end up going to like, just a benefactor. Mm-hmm. And if that benefactor decides that he no longer wants to go in that direction, then you can't go in that direction. And I think that like I think Vice in a way set themselves up for that.
Yes.
Like I mean, they kind of set themselves up for that, because I mean you do have to. I know it sucks, but you have to go out there and hustle and get the advertisers. You have to go out there and if a new restaurant opens up, you have to go there and ask them if they want to advertise. A new bookstore opens up, you have to go there and ask them if they want to advertise. And yeah, you need an advertising staff. You can't just have one kid running the street trying to no, you have to have a staff of people to get your revenue, So I think when that model changed, when we decided that we were going to base into everything on the benevolence of the rich, we made a major mistake.
Yes.
And I think that's where legacy media finds itself. I think legacy media finds itself in a place where they're not going to be benevolent. And so you have to, you're going to have to come up with another model because of course, they're going to do everything they can to get Trump back in the White House because that's where their money is.
Yep.
Right. So like they're going to tell you to lie, and you're going to have to lie. Right.
Yes.
So
yes, and that's the thing too, and it's even when you're at what would be a leftist publication, or like if you just think it's like objective, you will get that kind of narrative direction. People, your editors will come. I mean, I was shocking for me when I was at K-Pix, and there would be stories where I'd be like, yeah, we got to cover this. A big one was that when Vice covered the fact that the cops were using the self-driving car cameras for crime investigations, and they found this out and we're in public. And so I was at K-Pix, and so I hit up the news desk. Now the news desk is the person, they like kind of sit at the front and they listen to all the scanners, police scanners, and send out the camera people to, camera crews to go and shoot things. And so when I was saying like, hey, news desk, let's reach out to the police and get confirmation, like let's get a statement from them because this is a big deal. Right. The news desk is like, no, that's not a big deal. No one cares about that. No one cares. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
People absolutely want to know about surveillance. People absolutely care about their privacy. If they're around a self-driving car, they're going to want to know, like, or they will want to know, like, oh, this could be used for some crime, like crime evidence.
Right.
And so I just hit up the police on my own, and they came back and said, yeah, it's not, they gave me a statement. Yeah, it's not, we do, but it's not that big of a deal. It's really only like big crimes. I promise,
Yeah, you promise.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, time to write up this story. The pushback I immediately received was intense. Right. And it was shocking to me, having been in this business for almost 20 years. I've never had my news judgment challenged like that.
Wow.
Like where it was so clearly, this is it. And you know what? They shut down the story. I never put it up, never got to do anything. And instead they did a story about police recruitment in San Leandro.
Jeez. I mean, could you send a larger message to you? Like, is that not the biggest FU they could possibly have thought of?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, but like we talked about in my initial interview, I mean, the whole thing about access journalism, I think is deeply flawed. And I sometimes you don't, I mean, like the real problem is, I just saw an interview and everybody's really amazed at this Ted Cruz interview because a reporter actually pushed back on Cruz.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you going to deny the certification of the 2024 election? Him ha. No, I asked you a simple question. You should give me an answer. Him ha. But my thing is if Ted Cruz is not able to give you a simple answer, don't invite Ted Cruz back.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, because you don't need access to Ted Cruz. What do you need access to Ted Cruz for? What do you need access to Donald Trump Jr. for? Right? What do you need access to, like, dirty cops? If you know the cops are already have lied to you or giving you half information or whatever like that, maybe you shouldn't be talking to the cops, right? Because we do have watchdogs. We do have watchdogs that we should actually be focusing on more. People who've already figured out a way to get that information without needing that access.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I think that's the thing. It's like we do have that. We do have the outlets, and we do have the organizations. They're just not being highlighted, and their stories are not coming out, but they do exist. They act as if they don't, right? And so, I mean, like, that's the reason why, we talked about, like, talking to, for example, Allison Collins, from San Francisco board recall, and I doubt that anybody's ever actually heard her story. I don't know if anybody ever actually has, and the same thing was, like, I'm glad now that Pamela Price is finally starting to get people who are listening to what she has to say, but for the longest time, we only heard from the recallers. Anytime the news wanted to talk about the recall, they never contacted Price or anybody from her team. They contacted the recallers. Dion Lim would actually go to Carl Chan to talk about what was going on in the courthouse.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like, so, I mean, like, who do you, there's a whole team of district attorneys who are in the courthouse.
Yes.
So why would you go to Carl Chan? Why would you go to Brenda Grisham when you actually do have access to the person who can actually give you the information that you need? Not some speculation, not conjecture, So, I mean, I'm looking forward to being able to, like, get those voices, no matter how small our organization may be.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to trying to get those voices and those stories out. Next week, hopefully, we'll be talking about Cop City. An incredible article just came out in New York Magazine just yesterday about cop cities all over the country. And these are the kind of stories that people need to hear. And we need to record those things and actually say that, no, we kept record. Even as like the Chronicle is kind of like failing us. Even as the East Bay Times is kind of failing us just a little bit. You know what I mean? Meaning that there is a spin to a story that shouldn't be even a spin. It should, like, either you have the information or you don't. You know, so the whole thing about the spin itself, I think, is in a lot of ways is what turns people off of the media. You know, because it sounds like you're kind of blowing smoke up my ass. It kind of sounds like that. You know, and then what they do is the right actually will influence the media to blow smoke up people's asses. Then they go back and tell everybody, oh, well, you know, the media is blowing smoke up your ass. Well, isn't that what you're paying them to do?
Totally. Well,
Right.
Well, and also, do you ever run into this? Well, I don't watch the news because it brings me down. Like, do you ever run into that attitude? I get that a lot where it's like people, I'll be talking to them and they're like, oh, yeah, and you know about this going on. And they'll be like, no, I actually don't get in the news. It just depresses me. And it's just like, I'm sorry. This is why Trump wins.
Yeah.
You know, this is why the right could be so successful, because they really are trying to push negativity all the time, too. Just negative narratives. Crime's such a huge deal in Oakland. Well, actually, if you look at the stats, it's down by a third.
Yep.
A 33%. That's huge. That's successful in Oakland, you know? And then what do they do it too? Like, they're like, oh, I mean, there's also like the whole thing about the real estate there and stuff like that, where they're like, oh, but you know what? Like all these buildings, that's exceeding and keeping down rents. What are you talking about? All the other time, you're just saying how crappy Oakland is and how they need to recall the mayor. That's why literally the rent is going down, because you guys are being so hard and forceful about how it's shit.
Well, you know, it's so funny because like that, like to me, like one, I agree with you about the way people feel about like just the news in general. But as we, you know, up until recently, I mean, I just saw this thing that Jon Stewart did, and he's talking about how outrage is the primary currency in the news these days. There was a time, I mean, like, you know, we both grew up with Walter Cronkite. We both grew up with Dan Rather. Yeah, we both, you know,
Peter Jennings too.
Peter Jennings, right?
Yeah.
But people who actually there was an integrity in the reporting of the news. Of course, the concept of objectivity was always problematic.
Yes,
but at least like, you know, there was a time before the end of the fairness doctrine that Reagan destroyed, that you pretty much had to tell the truth.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like you pretty much had to, or you were going to get in trouble with the government if you weren't. If they caught you lying, there was something that the government could do and intervene.
Yes.
That doesn't exist anymore. And I think that's the reason. And we might even do a whole thing on this, how Reagan fucked everything up.
Yeah.
We could actually...
Reagan and Clinton.
Oh,
with the media consolidation.
Yeah. Oh my God, that did us in.
Yeah,
that did us in too. Great compromisers, I guess, both of them or whatever.
Totally.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's the other thing that really hurt the general tenor and tone of the way we get access to real time information. You know, like the minute that something drops, I mean, like right after Chauvin, or even worse, Trayvon, even worse, right? Even before that boy's body was interred, there was already a counterspin.
Yep.
Like, and that counterspin was all lies. It was all lies. But even before he was actually buried, that counterspin was already in motion in the news, already in motion in social media. And the thing was, we didn't even understand that there was apparatus. But like Stormfront, but what the hell is that? Gab? What is Gab?
Yeah.
Right? 4chan? What the hell is 4chan? Right? So we really didn't know. We had no idea. But now these guys have all gone mainstream.
Yep.
Charlie Kirk and what's his name? Tim Pool.
Yes. Ian Miles Chong.
Right? These guys are all 4chaners. They're all 4chaners, but they've gone mainstream. And they now have the backing of, like, you know, billionaires in order to push out this misinformation, like, you know, 24/7. But it took us all by surprise at one point, right? But the scariest part about it is now we got fucking Dr. Phil interviewing Chong.
And Andy No. Oh,
Andy No, that's where it is. That's the name I was looking for. Andy No.
Oh God.
Yeah. So Dr. Phil's called him an independent journalist, and he interviewed him as an independent journalist. And the movie Civil War, they actually paid this guy for some of his footage, and they gave him acknowledgement and credit for the film. So that's what I'm saying. I'm saying is just like that apparatus is something that needs to be countered. And I think that what I like about Doomloop Dispatch and the rise of a lot of these kind of resistances is we all understand now that we have to keep it small. We have to focus on our own local communities, maybe sometimes expanding a little bit further out, but they are focused on our local communities. Of course, they want to take over the whole damn country, but they intend to do it small city after city, town after town. And so every place they are trying to do that, there should be outlets like this one to counter what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
And stay focused on those issues.
Yeah. I mean, it's local media truly was, if you go back to like, I mean, even back to like the abolition movement, you know, it was the columnists at the local papers, usually the guys that own the newspapers that were against slavery, you know, writing the screeds and, you know, pumping up the people to fight against it.
Yes,
you know, that's where it started. It truly local media, local news is really the foundation of the truth.
Yes,
you know, I
well,
mean, because no one knows more about what's going on here than the people on the ground.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Exactly. And you know, and it's funny because I didn't really, okay, as far as the recall, now I know we're going to be wrapping it up here in a second, but I'll tell you a funny story.
Yeah, let's hear
it. The way I got wrapped up in the recall was that I couldn't get into my Trader Joe's. That is the truth. That's the truth. Like for about the first, like, you know, at the beginning of the recall, I mean, there've always been petition gatherers. I did signature gathering when I was a teen. You know, I mean, like in really rough conditions. Like it was in West Virginia. I'm doing signature gathering in redneck parts of the state for like stupid stuff. Like, you know, they're going to try to, like, you know, reduce the amount of coin you get when you turn in like your recycling. Like we had recycling centers.
Yeah.
And it was like, at the time it was something like 3 cents per bottle or 3 cents per can or whatever. Yeah. And somebody wanted to drop it. And so they actually got hired to go and gather signatures in the most rural areas of West Virginia to try to stop that from happening. Very dangerous work. And it didn't pay well, so I didn't do it for very long. But the thing is like for me, being on the ground, it really, I was aware of Pamela Price. I didn't understand the machinations that were happening behind her. I had no idea what the forces were and exactly how large those forces were. But it was the fact that you are in my community, in my neighborhood, and you're interfering with the things that are about just people just trying to get their food. You're standing in front of Trader Joe's. You're standing in front of the Pete's. You're standing in front of the Arizmendi. And you're being loud and aggressive for no goddamn reason.
Yeah.
And as a journalist, I was like, well, what the hell is this? And that's the thing that really got me started, was because I was on the ground. And I'm talking about just feet on the ground, just like just boots on the ground. And I think like a lot of these things, if we could figure out a way to connect the people to these stories, right, then those stories would get importance again.
Yeah. And I mean, that was absolutely the whole reason I started Doomloop Dispatch, is because I got so frustrated, feeling helpless.
Yes.
I was watching these massive movements happen. And it started with the San Francisco recalls, where it was so clearly, you know, the fix was in.
Yeah.
It was that clear that it was. I remember the big one for me would really piss me off and really set me off on like, like basically like giving up on local news media, was the story by Heather Knight about Brooke Jenkins and her reason for her split from Chesa Boudin's team. And the case where basically this man lost his mind and killed his mother. And basically like the cops came and found him covered in his mom's blood and stuff, you know? Well, you know, what Brooke Jenkins protested because she said Boudin didn't want to put this guy in jail. This guy was dangerous and put in jail. And Heather Knight wrote this whole thing about like, how crazy is that, you know? And of course, it's one of those things too, where it's an opinion piece, but it's written like it's total fact.
Yeah.
And that does so much for these narratives, for these right-wing narratives. But it came out that the public defender had talked with Heather Knight and told her, no, the family didn't want anything to happen. They just wanted their son to get help. They said his mom would have wanted him to get help. They don't want to put him in prison or get him the death penalty and stuff. And Heather Knight completely ignored that. And she just kept writing these hit pieces that succeeded, that truly did their work and, you know, set these guys up for recalls. Well, and now where's she at? New York Times.
New York Times.
So I'm sick. I just got so sick of having to stand back and knowing the truth and not being able to do or say anything. And it's in moments like this, if you feel that helpless, I mean, honestly, just get involved in any way you can. And I tried first through politics. I tried fundraising for John Hamasaki's campaign, and that did some work. But I know, you know, I have 20 years in this. Like, time to use like my real skills to help out. And
exactly. And I'm in the exact same boat. I mean, I've been writing for newspapers and magazines, and I've been a columnist and an editor. And you know, when I was editor of the paper, like, you know, I always did try to keep a balance, right? I mean, like, it wasn't necessary. I do have my biases, my political biases. I do have them. And so, like, you know, so to be able to like represent myself and my honest to God political beliefs, my feelings about civil rights, my feelings about LGBTQ equality, like I can do that representing myself, and that'd be the way that I would fight back, and hopefully to join voices and bring more voices in, you know. So I know we were only gonna make a really short one, man. So I just want to say thank you for inviting me into this. I can't wait to see what we do next. I can't wait to see who we talk to. You know, and I'm also, like, you know, very honored that you were asking me to come along, man.
Oh yeah, well, our talk was so great, man. I seriously, people don't realize we talked for 2 hours. We could have kept going. I had to do a lot of editing, but I loved it, man. You're just so insightful, and I'm just so glad. So, you know what? Thanks, D, man. And, you know, I don't know about you, but I'm ready to do what I can to make the world a better place.
Yeah, man. Let's get it. Let's get it,
man. Yeah, all right. All right. Well, until next week, everybody, and you know, keep fighting the good fight.
We keep fighting the good fight. Doom the Doom Loop.